Three thrones, balance, fate, destiny. The calculus is older than what calculates it. Only time knows what being is, and time does not say. A traveler crosses the first throne by walking, the second by enduring. The third opens only when the soul's will has become veritable, when what a man wants and what he is have ceased to disagree. Çekim was no longer in disagreement. The membrane parted. The membrane of the void parted without sound, and Çekim of the Kha-Ergen stepped into the jeweled necrosis of OTH-KALDOR. It was a continent that had forgotten respiration. The Garnet Sun sagged swollen above a bruised firmament, shedding a dim, wine-colored radiance that warmed nothing. Below him, terraces of ossified marble descended toward a violet gulf, where the sea lapped indifferently against balustrades of petrified salt. Domes crusted in tarnished gold leaned at improbable angles, and towers banded in verdigris caught the exhausted light like the last gleam on a dead monarch's crown. In this terminal age, nothing was earned. Everything was bartered. Çekim walked. He did not quicken his step at the sight of chryselephantine statues whose ivory faces had wept into onyx streaks. He did not marvel at the preserved dead who swept the avenues in silence, their embalmed hands moving with ritual precision.
Does time remember, or is it just me? Are there any spaces left in memory? We were children once in summer. Time doesn't say if there will be another.
He was a vertical line cutting through a horizontal sprawl of decline. Candles burning with corpse fat flared to a steady clarity as he passed. Ritual diagrams etched in bone dust blurred at their edges, failing to calculate the angle of his shadow. In a city where every soul bore the watermark of transaction, a man whose debt had already been paid registered like an error in sacred arithmetic. Beneath hanging chains of oxidized copper bells, the gate seers waited. Their silver masks reflected him in distorted fragments. "You seek someone," intoned the eldest, breath fragrant with black lotus and old incense.
"I seek Morlana."
The seers extended their minds, honed on centuries of profitable despair. The mirror cloud between them thickened, searching for the sigil that named his patron. It found nothing, not void, not chaos, simply no applicable currency. "Morlana does not receive without tribute," one said at last.
"I have none."
Unable to bind him, Unable to measure him, they inclined their masked heads toward the eastern quarter. He moved past them without acknowledgement, the copper bells chiming once behind him, and then falling still. Higher in the city, upon a terrace overlooking the violet sea, the necromancer of the Amber Court reclined beneath canopies of fading silk. Pearls and lapis weighed upon her pale hands. Kohl darkened her eyes into voided crescents. She felt him before she saw him. Her wards attempted to engage, elegant filaments of necromantic calculus reaching toward his form. They slid away, neither severed nor resisted, merely unrecognized. "You carry no sigil," she called down, voice languid as warm resin. "What hell have you declined? Who owns you?"
No one.
Impossible. Every breath in OTH-KALDOR is sponsored. She leaned forward, silk whispering against stone. "I can guide you to the one you seek. The price is a fraction of your essence."
I seek Morlana.
Her fingers traced a subtle binding in the air, a spell that had ensnared princes and broken dynasties. It met him and unraveled without protest. The incompatibility was absolute. For the first time in centuries, uncertainty creased her immaculate brow. She gestured toward the fossil valleys beyond the city's rim. Çekim walked on.
A leper crouched beside the gate, watching kingdoms rot in place. Camel hooves on temple stone, gods erased but never gone. That's right. Dust keeps sleeping in the cracks. Stone remembers every name. The man walking through the crowd, like silence wrapped in human phrase. Where the insane drown and the mystics swim in the deep end, where the light gets strange and the edge grows dim. Sometimes you drown to learn to float. Sometimes the dead still walk below. Corpse spice hanging in the air, perfume drifting through the square. Every flower drinking deep from buried empires underneath. Old prayers carved into the wall. Still whisper through the market noise. Slaves keep carrying water jars, like history never had a choice. Where the insane drown and the mystics swim, we swim in the deep end. That's where I begin. She comes a dead man's silver hair, morning candles burning there. And out the grave forgets to close, and every hallway softly knows. The sea keeps saying someone's name, but never says it twice the same. The man walking through the lamps, while the dead pretend they've never changed. They light the houses of the dead, but living never ask them why. The city breeds in borrowed lungs, but you where to stand. That's where I began. An old man mapping vanished stars, reading fires already gone, light arriving centuries late, like memory refusing dawn. The heavens died before this age, but still he traces every line. The man crossing through the night, while dead constellations still align.
At the ruined amphitheater near the city's edge, emerald sigils burned in geometric arcs. A demon lingered, half-manifested within their lattice, its shape fluctuating like smoke trapped in crystal. Another petitioner for the pale lady, it rasped, voice like grinding facets. I can lead you. Only a memory will suffice.
No.
The demon stilled. It tasted the air around him, probing for infernal registry, celestial watermark, ancestral claws. Its expression shifted. You are already paid in full, it said slowly. The emerald flames dimmed. The entity withdrew, unwilling to entangle itself with an obligation beyond invoice. As Çekim neared the outer gates, a procession descended from the upper tiers. Aged thaumaturges adorned in talismans, necromancer kings borne upon palanquins of lacquered bone. They did not threaten him. They knelt, not in reverence, in calculation. You carry stabilization, whispered an ancient priest whose beard had turned to threads of silver ash. He lifted a crown of black glass that refracted the Garnet Sun into fractured halos. Take the sun, sit upon the obsidian meridian, rewrite our decline. The vision unfolded with crystalline precision. He saw the Garnet Sun blanch to pale gold, towers straightening, domes restored, demons collared in disciplined geometries of light. Necromancers ordered into hierarchies of measured purpose. Entropy halted beneath his imposed symmetry. 10,000 years of immaculate dominion, perfection, stillness. To impose perfection was merely another form of stasis. Give us what you carry, the priest urged.
I carry nothing.
That is not true.
I carry obligation.
They did not understand the word. OTH-KALDOR had abandoned obligation for indulgence before its oceans drowned forgotten continents. Çekim regarded the crown. For a breath, the black glass shimmered, reflecting 1,000 potential empires. He stepped past it. A faint fracture veined the crown's surface, almost imperceptible. Above, the Garnet Sun steadied, only for an instant. A single, unfamiliar constellation flickered within the bruised firmament. Far far beyond sight, the throne of destiny resonated once. The procession remained kneeling long after he had passed, uncertain whether they had just witnessed salvation or its refusal. He descended from the jeweled terraces into a valley carved from the fossilized ribs of leviathans, whose skulls lay half submerged in black glass. The bones rose around him as he walked, vast pale arches that had once held the breath of creatures the continent no longer remembered the names of. The dust of them lay fine and silver on the valley floor, and his footfall raised no sound the floor was willing to keep. At the far end of the valley, upon a plinth of shattered obsidian, Morlana waited. The tome of the final incantation rested across her lap, bound in pale leather, worn smooth by epochs. She had felt the tremor across OTH-KALDOR. She saw him from a great distance, a small, dark figure descending among the bones. Then, from the western edge of the valley, where the leviathan ribs gave way to the broken plain, and the plain gave way to the wastes beyond, she saw a second figure emerge. She did not move. The tome did not shift in her hand. The Garnet Sun bled its tired light across the bone valley, and Morlana, who had sat upon this plinth for measures of time the inhabited world had forgotten how to count, watched. The second figure was a lion, black, vast, moving across the dust without hurry, without sound, without the gait of a creature pursuing prey or answering call. He moved as a thing of weight moves when it has decided a direction. The direction settled long before the motion began. The motion only the courtesy of the body to the decision. Morlana knew the lion. The realm knew the lion. The lion had not been seen in the inhabited lands in 1,000 years. He came on a long diagonal across the valley floor. The traveler did not turn toward him. The traveler did not stop. He continued his descent at the same measured pace, and the lion adjusted his line, and the lines converged at a point in the middle of the valley where neither of them had to alter his bearing to meet the other. The meeting was the geometry of two paths that had already agreed to intersect. When the lion reached him, the traveler did not look down. He did not extend a hand. He did not slow. He simply continued his walk, and the lion fell into pace beside him, at his left, the great black head level with the traveler's hip, the silver eyes fixed forward on the plinth where Morlana sat. They came on together. Morlana watched them cross the remaining distance and did not blink. She had been spoken to by emperors, by gods, by the lords of chaos in their own tongue, None of them had ever caused her to forget, for the length of 100 heartbeats, that the tome was in her hand. The lion had emerged from the waste. The lion was walking beside a man, and the lion's bearing was the bearing he had carried out of the wastes once before, 1,000 years ago, when he had come briefly into the inhabited lands after his master's death, and then withdrawn again, and had not been seen since. She understood, before they had closed half the distance to the plinth, what she was seeing. She did not need the wards to confirm it. The wards she would still cast, because that was the discipline of her station, and the discipline did not bend for revelation. But the verdict was already in. When they reached the plinth, the travelers stopped at the proper distance. The lion stopped with him, a half-pace to his left, and sat, not at the traveler's feet, beside him. The silver eyes settled on Morlana with the open, undefended attention of a creature who had nothing to prove and nothing to ask. She did not rise. Her wards reached toward him first, elegant filaments of necromantic measure, the same that had snared princes and broken dynasties. They slid from him without purchase, not severed, not resisted, simply unrecognized. She let them dissolve. The smoke of them hung a moment in the bruised air and was gone. She studied him from the plinth. The Garnet Sun bled its tired light across them both.
There is sadness in your eyes,
she said.
but it is not the sadness of a man who regrets.
He did not answer. He did not need to.
It is older than that. Given, not earned. Time gave you part of it. Fate gave you another. Destiny finished the work.
A pause. The tome creaked faintly under her hand.
And yet your soul sits at peace with it. The sadness has a chair in you, and you have made room. That is rarer than the sadness itself.
She watched him for a long moment.
Tell me, traveler, what did you set down to make that room?
Çekim lifted his eyes slightly. His bearing relaxed by a measure. The courtesy of a man from an older code who had been asked an honest question by a woman and was honoring the asking before he answered.
The self,
He said.
whose whispers feign alliance, yet hide the voice of an enemy.
Morlana inclined her head. She knew that voice. She had heard it across every life she could remember, and in the spaces between. It used a man's own cadence. It knew his griefs by name. It offered rest, and the rest it offered was the long rest, the one that did not end.
So that is what you set down.
She said.
You learned to hear the difference between the voice that wears your face and the voice that is your face. And the sadness that remains is the sadness of having had to learn it.
A pause.
Did you learn it alone? Or was there someone who taught you the listening?
There is nothing taken without given in balance.
Çekim answered.
A mercy called Kenbish.
The name was given with the weight that only the dead carry when the living refuse to let them be small. Morlana let it sit in the air between them. It deserved the silence. When she spoke again, the blade had gone out of her voice. What remained was thinner and older.
I had a name once, Valyron the Pale, a sorcerer king of Python in the years before Kha-Ergen fell. I had 2 cousins of my own blood, Malthor, who would have taken my throne, Zaltara, whom I loved. When Python's hour came, I killed them both, not in battle, cold, by my own hand, because if I had let them live, the corruption of Kha-Ergen would have seeded itself again, and the wheel would not have turned. It was the act the age required. I have carried it without complaint. That is not the same as carrying it without weight.
She looked at him.
Your Kenbish gave you the listening. Her loss made you firm. The sadness sat down in you and made a home. I made my choice with open eyes. I have made it again in every life since. 1,000 Zaltaras under different names. 1,000 Malthors in 1,000 wars. Each time the balance demanded it. Each time I paid. The choice was always right. The memory carries no satisfaction, only the weight of having been the one who carried it.
A long silence.
Your sadness sits. Mine paces. Yours has a chair. Mine has worn a circle in the floor.
Çekim met her eyes. When he spoke, his voice was flat as a leveled blade.
You carried balance. You did not let balance settle. Grief is indulgence.
The line landed like a stone in deep water. Not loud. Down. All the way down. The tome did not shift in her lap. Something in her ribs did. She had been spoken to by emperors, by gods, by the lords of chaos in their own tongue. None of them had ever said this to her. The Garnet Sun darkened by a shade. Somewhere in the upper city, a bell that had not rung in centuries rang once. She did not weep. The wetness in her eyes was older than weeping. It was the dampness of stone meeting air after a long time underground. She had been carrying what should have been set down. She had needed the carrying. She had called it fidelity and meant something else. He had measured her in 7 words and added 3 more, and the 3 more were the deeper cut. When she spoke, the thinness was gone. What remained was direct, level, finished with the descent.
Why are you here, Çekim of the Kha-Ergen?
I am not a spoke on the wheel.
Çekim answered.
I am the hand that balances the axle.
Morlana did not move. The line did not surprise her. She had felt it across the wards before he had spoken a word. But hearing it given plainly, in his own voice, settled something in her that had been spinning for 3,000 years.
The hand that balances the axle,
she repeated, not testing the words, tasting them. She was quiet for a long moment. The Garnet Sun bled across the leviathan ribs. Somewhere far above, the bell that had rung once during the descent did not ring again, and its silence had a quality the valley had not held before.
I have stood beside the wheel for as long as it has turned,
she said.
I have been spoke and rim and broken hope. I have died for it and lived for it, and carried its weight when it would not turn on its own. I have never met a hand.
She looked at him with the directness of a woman who had set down a robe she had been wearing for 3,000 years.
Tell me what the hand requires.
Çekim did not answer in cosmology. He did not answer in prophecy. He answered with the smallest true shape of the work.
The rot within the Cimmerians who sealed the gates of Acheron. 2 clan chiefs, blinded by pride, waging a feud that blocks the river of destiny. The lock rusts while they quarrel.
Morlana did not answer at once. The hand that balances the axle. The words had not entered her when Çekim spoke them. They had risen to meet her from somewhere deeper. A chamber in her she had sealed 3,000 years ago, and walked past every day since without remembering it was there. Valyron. He had been dying when he said it. The barbarian who had hunted him through 7 kingdoms stood over him with the killing iron still wet. And Valyron, prophet, traitor, both, neither, the argument had outlived him, had looked up not in fear, but in recognition, as if he had finally arrived at the doorway he had been walking toward his entire life. The wheel turns, he had said, blood in his teeth, eyes on the barbarian's face, but the words meant for the threshold where she stood unseen. And one day I may yet return, a son or a daughter, to stand beside you against the corruption you now fight in me.
I came for the door.
He paused. Then, quieter, the only line that named her in the architecture.
I came for the one who can shatter the pride that holds it shut.
Morlana rose. The tome closed in her hands with a soft, final sound. The weight of eons unfolded with her, but the weight had changed shape. It was no longer the weight of a sentry holding a watch she could not set down. It was the weight of a woman who had been carrying her own grief for 3,000 years, and had just been shown, in 7 words and 3 more, that the carrying was the wound. The lion had not moved through any of it, through the wards, through the long descent of her sadness, through Çekim's verdict on the wheel and her acceptance of the road. The lion had sat at the traveler's left, the silver eyes level with the traveler's hip, the great body still as carved absence on the bone-pale floor. Morlana looked at him now for the first time directly. She had not addressed him since the moment he had crossed the valley. She had not needed to. But the road they were about to take required her to speak what she had been holding in silence since the lion had emerged from the wastes.
The lion has a name, traveler,
She said.
though the name was never his.
Çekim did not speak. The space he left open was the courtesy of a man from an older code, who knew that a story of this shape deserved the unhurried air around it.
1,000 years ago, in the wastes beyond the eastern edge, where the continent gives up on its own geometry and the maps stop, a man lived. His name was Othar. He did not enter the cities. He did not trade in the markets. He did not accept tribute or offer it. Necromancers sent emissaries to him. The emissaries returned empty-handed, or did not return. Demons offered him contracts. He did not refuse them, because he did not acknowledge that the contracts had been spoken. He lived in the waste, and the waste held him, and the continent did not know what to do with a man who would not enter its negotiations.
She looked at the lion. The lion did not look back. She had not expected him to.
The lion was with him. No one knows which came first to the waste, or whether they came together. The order was never recorded, and I have learned that when the order of a meeting is not recorded, it is usually because the meeting recognized itself, and there was no first and second. They walked the waste together. Othar would go into places that even I would not name aloud, and the lion would walk beside him, and nothing in the waste came within sight of them, not because of fear, because of category. There was no language in which the things of the waste could conceive of approaching them.
The Garnet Sun darkened by a degree, as it sometimes did when the realm itself was listening.
When Othar passed, and he passed of nothing, in the way men of his kind sometimes pass, the way a flame goes out when the night is finished with it. The lion lay beside him for 9 days. He did not eat, he did not move. On the 10th day, he rose, and he came once into the inhabited lands. Only once. He walked through the outer towns and the eastern courts, and the realm saw him, and the realm understood that something had ended. He did not speak to any of us. He did not stop. He came as far as the edge of this valley, and he looked across it, and then he turned and went back into the wastes. He has not been seen in the inhabited lands since, until today.
Morlana's voice had gone quiet.
The people of the realm began to call him Othar, not because anyone bestowed the name, not because the lion ever accepted it. They called him Othar because they could not bear to let the man's name fall out of language. And the lion was the only vessel left in the world that the name could be spoken toward and still mean what it had meant. They called him Othar, the way a widow keeps her husband's name on the door of the house. Not because the house is the husband, but because the name has nowhere else to live.
She looked at the lion. The silver eyes were level with Çekim's hip, fixed forward, untroubled.
He has never corrected them. He refuses every other thing this continent has tried to give him. But this one thing he has allowed. For 1,000 years he has carried a name that was not his, because to refuse it would have been to let the man disappear. The lion's silence has been Othar's last shelter in the world. The lion has been the place where the name still lives.
She turned to Çekim, and her voice now carried the weight of the full revelation.
He came out of the wastes today, traveler, for the second time in 1,000 years. The first time he came to mark an ending. This time he came to walk with you. I do not know what you are. I do not know what the man in the waste was. But I know that the lion is not capable of error in this measure. And I know that whatever Othar was, you are of his kind.
She inclined her head to Çekim, the acknowledgement given to a category, not a person.
The name will rest on you both from this hour. The lion has carried it long enough alone. Walk beside him, and Othar lives again.
Çekim looked down at the lion. The lion did not look up. They stood as they would stand from this hour onward, on every threshold the work would require. Side by side, the man and the realm's old soul, neither claiming the other, both simply present to the work. And the name of a man who had refused the continent 1,000 years ago, resting on the two of them, the way a single roof rests on two pillars set far enough apart that the room between them can hold whatever needs to be held. She paused. The tome closed in her hand, but the weight of the world it had recorded did not.
Before we walk, hear me. The rust of this world is not its weather, it is its grip. 3,000 years I have stood the wheel, and 3,000 years the wheel has eaten into me by a measure no balm has touched. There is a stone in this valley, the Null-Tear of Xythanis, that drinks what the wheel cannot heal. My debt has been poured into it since the Garnet Sun first cooled. If I leave OTH-KALDOR while the stone still drinks, I leave as a shade. The wheel beyond this one will not hold a woman whose debt was never closed.
She did not ask. She named.
I cannot walk with you while that stone holds my measure.
Çekim heard her. He did not answer at once. Two things the throne of destiny had told him before it sent him down. Convince her, then release her. He had carried the first half across the descent without knowing the second half would arrive in her own voice. Now both halves stood in the valley with him, and the order of them had been correct. The throne had not asked him to free her. The throne had asked him to earn the asking, to be the kind of hand she could request the freeing from. The asking was the proof that the first half had landed. He lifted his eyes to the basalt glass beyond the leviathan ribs. The Null-Tear had not been summoned. It would have to be called.
Then let the stone come up,
He said.
I will meet it where the bones lie.
He raised his hand, palm open, and willed the desolation to deliver what it had been holding. Somewhere beneath the black glass, a weight that had been buried since before the Garnet Sun cooled began to rise.
They build these walls to cage the mind, but madness flows like sacred wine. From one man's crazy is another's divine. That's right. Will the insane drown in the mystic, swim in the tide, dance on the razor's edge, on the edge, the genius in the light, watch it shine. They say I've lost my way again, lost my way, but I'm just swimming where the drowning men have been.